Jimin just talked about JK's relationship and what's going on with that. We have apparently JK at dinner with Jennie and what's going on with that. And then we have McDonald's confirming all of the rumors and being really one of the few companies that's actually speaking up about what's going on. Say Dumplings is Dave, decide hate it or not. Make sure you're subscribed with the notification bell on. And make sure you join us fangirling on Patreon with some free content on Saturdays now, and let's go. Recently, there's been a lot of backlash with V after he posted his picture with him holding some French fries. And this was extremely controversial because a lot of people were very angry and upset over this idea that V was showing support to McDonald's. Now, in case you are not aware, there's this movement that's going around, and it seems like this movement is actually getting a lot of things wrong. And I could see this movement actually getting legal action taken on them, where the movement talks about companies and which companies to protest and which companies are bad because those companies are allegedly funding the genocide over in the Middle East. Now, it's interesting because there's no actual evidence that's ever pointed to the company ever actually funding the Middle East. It's screenshots and alleged articles that could or could not be true, and it's very hard to find these things. So whether or not the movement is actually finding these pieces of evidence to convict these companies, we actually don't know, because if it's true, these things are very difficult to find. Like, how do you find a specific CEO and what cause they're donating, all that stuff? It's not always public knowledge. And then if we cannot find these things, we're just going to assume that the movement is true, because who is really like a die-hard fan of McDonald's that is like going to support them through all this? Like, they're just probably going to keep buying from McDonald's or Starbucks or whatever and not really say anything publicly because they don't really want to be attacked, which is the up and downside of not having your face on a brand, right? Because if the brand has a face, then a lot of people will kind of jump to the defense of them, but if the brand doesn't, people don't feel connected enough to defend them. Now, McDonald's actually came out and talked about this, which I think they're one of the very few companies that's actually come out and talked about this. I think most of them stayed silent, and I don't actually know why, because I think it makes them look worse. But I think it's okay to come out and deny this, because I think a lot of the accusations don't actually make a lot of sense. However, McDonald's has come out and basically said that they see no merit to what is being accused of them. And they're definitely not funding what is going on in the Middle East. And they just literally addressed it very directly, very bluntly. They did not beat around the bush at all. And a lot of people have a lot of respect for that. And I think a lot of people who are big fans of V have taken this to say, look, he is innocent, he is not a bad person, because obviously McDonald's is not a big supporter of what's going on in the Middle East. Now, I think this statement is going to set a precedent for other companies, because I think a lot of other companies felt like in order to address it, they would have to kind of explain what's going on in the Middle East and then kind of pick a side and then either say what's happening and what isn't happening. And that ends up getting way too political. For example, Starbucks is just a coffee company. Why would they want to touch that political battleground? However, as you can see here, this apology almost panders to what people think is going on. And they're basically just outright denying those rumors and saying that that is ridiculous. Or not saying that specifically, but that's at least what I believe they're saying. So I think other companies will kind of follow suit and kind of say, well, looks like McDonald's is getting pretty good reception for just denying rumors. Let's do that too. I was surprised also when I saw Jimin talking about JK and their relationship. This is extremely cute, and I think it explained a lot of why they chose to be together during the military enlistment. This was an interview or a little talk that Jimin had with RM right before they enlisted, and apparently Jimin and JK had dinner or lunch together. And Jimin realized that he and JK get along very well because they can talk about music for hours. And Jimin specified that he can sometimes talk to JK for 3 or 4 hours about just music. And this is sort of a true friendship, right? Where you can kind of talk about things and kind of talk about your passion for that long. And I think it's really awesome to see the members get along and realize who they prefer to hang out with. And I think Jimin was looking for someone to go to the military with, and I think this was the right person for him. Jimin talked about how he wanted to make sure that even though he was going to the military and that he was doing the military training for a year and a half, he didn't want to forget what he had learned already. He still wanted to practice probably things like singing and dancing, and he didn't want to get worse at it. The pressure that I think a lot of people haven't really considered, which is, yeah, they are going to be taking a break for a year and a half, and they're expected that the moment they come back, they're supposed to be just as good as before, if not better, and also be able to dance and sing long hours just like they used to, because they're coming straight back into performing or potentially world touring because the community misses them so much. Chances are, if you are in the military and maybe not really playing your music, you probably will even forget some of your songs, some of your lyrics and stuff. So even relearning that, and then maybe even having to relearn some of the choreography, is it's going to be very strenuous, I think. And so it seemed pretty clear that Jimin wanted someone in which during the downtime in the military, they can kind of talk about music and still be in that space, even though they're leaving. And I think one of the scariest things about leaving a career for a really long time, whether that be a year or whether that be just a few months, is forgetting how to do the thing. When you step away for such a long time, you kind of forget what people like and what people enjoy. So you might used to know people like this specific sound or this specific dance move or this specific style, and then now you're out of the spotlight for a while, you're out of touch with your community a little bit because you've been MIA. You will not know what exactly is going to work within that community, like what's going to go viral. Of course, a lot of things that worked maybe 5 years ago, even a couple months ago, nowadays are not things that are going to work now in the present day. So something that is trending even a few weeks ago is not going to be trending now. And when you step out of the spotlight, you tend to forget those things. And I think within a label, there probably are people that are in charge of keeping up with trends and that sort of stuff, but you yourself still have to know, and you yourself still have to know how you're going to portray those trends. Jumping on trends and doing what everyone else is doing is also not necessarily a sellout type of thing, especially if you're doing it in a way where it's authentic to you, it is within your style, and this is something BTS has done for forever. Now, apparently there is this news story that has made the media sites go crazy, but actually I don't think anyone in the community really cares about it, as I went on Twitter and no one really said anything. I don't think I can even find any tweets really talking about it. Don't get me wrong, there's a few people, but it's not significant. It's like not trending. Apparently people were saying that Jennie from Blackpink and JK went on a dinner. And not just them, one of JK's friends from 17 was there as well. Now the story behind this was that apparently they went to a Korean barbecue place, and it was posted on a sign in which JK left, like his signature. So that was proof that he was there. Now there was apparently someone from the staff from the Korean barbecue place that came out to say that they saw Jennie there as well. And this made people freak out because how true is this? Is this someone that's just lying? Is the Korean barbecue place just saying this for the sake of attention, or what's going on? However, I don't think that the Korean barbecue place would say this for attention because they know how controversial something like this could be, assuming that they're in Korea and they know that this is controversial. And if they say that and it causes this huge storm online, it could potentially end up with them getting sued. So I like to give the benefit of the doubt and say that if they were together, that is why the restaurant is saying that. And this was shocking to even the staff, as they said that they didn't know that the two knew each other that well, and that if they did know each other, they weren't aware that the two were very close. Now, just going for a dinner or whatever doesn't mean that you're close. It could just be one of the first few times they went to dinner together. But it's actually, I think, really cool to see them together. I think that this is awesome to know that there could potentially be a collaboration brewing, and BTS is essentially, and maybe even Blackpink, are just kind of waiting to see if the community would accept them working together. And I think as of right now, the answer is no. The community wouldn't accept them together. And again, this is, if everything is true, I'm still going to stay in the middle of this and not pick a side. And I think that this would be really cool. And I don't think that either of them should get backlash, and I would just leave it at that. This happened right before the military enlistment, so this isn't something right now, but apparently this story just came out now that the Korean barbecue place decided to speak up about it, if that makes sense. So old situation, new story. Let me know what you think. Make sure to check out Patreon for more videos, link down below. Thank you so much for the comment right here. Love you, bye.